Welcome to Scoop World Order. We are rolling. It is Tuesday. We have a ton of things breaking. Crazy day in sports overall. Obviously, the huge golf merger. Big expansion news with Colorado. Looking like they're heading back to the Big 12 from the Pac-12, along with Arizona. The expansion stuff is coming hot and heavy, and we have the number one authority in the country on it in the Oracle. He's very, very high up in that community, and he is bringing the heat as to what the Big Ten's going to look like in a couple years. So a lot of good stuff going on. Summer conditioning is cranking up. A youth camp wrapped up today for the young kids at Ohio State. The big boys get going on Thursday. That's where you see the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th graders. It's going to be cranking up. And for the current players, man, it is the dog days of summer. Conditioning is here. Those hot runs in the middle of the day. They're doing the cut 300s now. They're doing the gassers. I mean, this is where you make the team. This is where it's tough. And you got to get yourself in gear and get yourself in shape for training camp in August. It's almost here. So with that being said, as always, thank you guys. We appreciate you guys. We just had our anniversary, 3 years of Buckeye Scoop, dominating coverage, having a blast on there with my good friend Nevada and Bill the Bank Greene. Carrying the news. Bill Greene will be on site at the Woody Hayes giving us camp coverage. He's going to do a fantastic job. Can't wait to see what he sees from some of these young kids. And we're going to be bringing these player updates because everyone wants to know who's looking good in conditioning, who is making strides, who's maybe falling out a little bit. There's a lot of jockeying this time of the year to see who is where on the depth chart. Everything these guys do gets graded. Every sprint, every activity, every lifting day. They post the grades. The coaches see the grades. So these runs are really important. These runs, these lifts, these workouts. I mean, it might seem silly. It might seem stupid. But these guys get graded on everything. They get a scorecard. It gets sent to the position coach, the coordinator, and the head coach. And you'd be surprised how much input this stuff has. So if you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like. Click that subscribe button. You guys have been doing that. Send it to your friends. Send it to your family. We appreciate you guys doing that, spreading the good word. Hit that alert bell if you guys enjoy our live shows and you'd like to tune in and watch them with us. Bring those great questions. We appreciate you guys, as always, all of our regulars. Thank you so much. And as always, shout out where you're from, man. We had Miami. We've had Dubai. We might get some Saudi Arabia now that they bought the PGA Tour today, essentially. It's going to be crazy. So we appreciate you guys. And maybe we'll get some people, some UFO people tuning in now that we've discovered them. So Nevada, we've got some crazy stuff going on in the world today. How are you today, my friend?
First of all, you're scoffing at the alien story. The alien story might be the biggest story of our life. I mean, like I know that Trey Henderson looking ripped up and so like that. That's important. And I know, some 8th grade kid from Pequot going out there and running through gassers and finishing them up at the youth camp. That's important too. But man, we just had somebody really credible come out and say they found alien vehicles with the pilots in them, and they've been reverse engineering this thing for years in the U.S. government. And this guy's pretty credible. That's a big story, man. That's a big. Now, live golf. Does it live or live? Do you pronounce it live golf or live
It's
golf?
live. It's like Club Live in Miami, where I'm sure you've been to many times at Fountain Blue.
I called that live all those years. So it's Club Live.
No,
Okay,
you didn't. Are you
I did.
serious?
In my head, I always called it. But no, so yeah, live golf and PGA merge. But man, I think the alien story is bigger. We got a huge thread going on the aliens. It's like 26 pages, 1,000 replies. A lot of people like to talk about the alien stuff, and I'm fascinated by it. I think the government's trickling that stuff out to kind of get us ready for what's coming, because there's a lot of alien stuff coming out, and I don't think it's by accident. I'm just telling you that right now. But back to Trey Henderson looking pretty ripped. Looked pretty ripped in conditioning, man. That guy looks like he's in good shape.
Yeah, I want the aliens to show up, and I just want them to show up, like put their hands up in the air and say, "Why can't we get 5-star tackles at Ohio State anymore?" That's all I want them to say. And they'll be like, I don't know. They'll fly over in the flying saucer, and they'll be like, "Wow, all the big guys are down in Georgia now. That's crazy." And it's amazing. That's where they all go to school. But yeah, it is camp season. It's getting hot and heavy. I mean, they're like 5 camp days. The camps have just dramatically shrunk from where they used to be, because we used to have, back in the day when I first worked for Trust, man, we had like a commuter camp where these kids were staying overnight and they're in the dorms. And it was a chore, man. They're like 4 night long camps. No more commuter camps. Those are all gone. Every camp is a 1-day camp now. And really, it's only like a half day camp because, for those of you that aren't familiar, back in the olden days, like when I did the camp stuff, I went to Ohio State for 5 straight days. I did 3 days of the full camp where you stayed in the dorms, and it was like 3 a days. Like you'd practice in the morning, eat lunch, practice in the afternoon, go home, and then you'd play speedball or dodgeball or go swimming or something at night. And then you go back to the dorms and kick it. I mean, you did that 3 straight days. Then on the last 2 days, we did what they used to call the advanced camp, which was invite only. There were like 30 players there, no media, just coaches. And it was like the best of the best. I mean, it was Brady Quinn, Dante Whitner. It was the best players in the country. Our one-on-one drills were crazy. It was nuts. But those days are gone. There's no more invite only camps. It's really it's gotten a lot shorter, honestly. Like, when they do the camp on Thursday, literally the offensive and defensive linemen work out in the morning for about 3 hours or 2.5 hours. They do position work, then they do one-on-ones, and then they're done. They do some drill work, some agility work. They get their 40s and all that. But at lunchtime, the big guys are done, and then the skill guys, basically everybody that's not an offensive and defensive lineman, they all show up and they do their part of the day. But yeah, it used to be, even when Urban was there, it'd be the O-line would go in the morning, eat lunch, then come back in the afternoon, do another session of the same drills. But they've cut that down. And I think it's just so you could get a quicker eval. I think that when these guys like Mark Pantoni and Ryan Day are walking around, it's a lot easier now because you don't have 4 football fields. Because, at the Woody Hayes, we have 4 full football fields to go across the practice fields. And, back in the day, we would literally have guys on all 4 fields, different position groups. So if you're Ryan Day, or in my case back then it was Urban Meyer, you're trying to see everybody and watch everything and watch all the competitive things, and you're missing stuff because you can't be in 4 places at once to watch the quarterbacks, watch the O-line. So they've kind of boiled it down so you can get better evaluations. So, when the good offensive line group goes, you're going to have Ryan Day watching there. You're going to have Pantoni watching there. You're going to have, obviously Justin Fry. You're going to have all the guys that are the big time evaluators. Brian Hartline, obviously coordinator now. Joe Philbin, obviously, I'm sure he'll have input on the O-line since he's an O-line guy. But yeah, it's interesting. Nevada, you've been around, you've heard a lot around camps, seen camps. You go to the Elite 11. It's out in your neck of the woods. How valuable are camps? Do you think camps are still what they used to be? I mean, I think it's, they're good. You can get your eyeballs on guys, and some guys might surprise you or disappoint you. But how valuable are camps? And has value gone down at all recently, or is it still as valuable as it's ever been, in your opinion?
Well, one of the kind of unsung things about camps is like with I know from having a kid being recruited that the college coaches can't talk to them before June 15th of their sophomore, after their sophomore season, so like, but you go to a camp and you can talk to them all you want. So like, you can see them on June 14th and you got to walk right by them and not say a word to them. But if you're at a camp, you can talk to them all day and have unlimited communication. So I've always thought that was kind of an interesting thing by the NCAA in terms of the amount of communication, the amount of interaction you can have at one of these camps. Because look, it was always in the past. It was a vehicle for paying kids, paying mentors and hangers on, unlimited communication, et cetera, et cetera. Now, like I said, the game's changed between NIL. We could do that between the number of camps that are going on. The fact that you can't do invite only. It's got to be. What they do to get around the invite only is they'll still have those advanced camps, but they'll only publicize it out to the elite kids. So if Joe Schmoke just kind of calls up and is like, "Hey, I want to go to the camp," and, "Oh, sorry, already full. You can't go to the next camp. Go to the camp here with little Timmy and little Nevadabuck there, where they stay in the dorms with Bert Carton as their overseer. They're yelling at them all the time." So no, I think these camps still have value, but it's limited. But like I said, we're gonna have Bill the Bank Green out there, for those close calls on kids that are going out there to battle for offers, or for those kind of late bloomers or under the radar kids. Be interesting to see who they see, because a guy like a Joe Philbin may see something in a kid that other people don't. And that's where you're going to pick up some of these hidden gems. And Ohio State would really do well to see what they can mine out there. You just never know, especially with the bigs.
Yeah, I always, I like seeing these guys compete. I don't get a lot out of. I mean, you get a little bit out of seeing the movement skills, but like the one-on-one pass rush, people think that that's like the be-all end-all, and I think it's an okay drill, but it's so skewed towards the defense that it's almost crazy. Especially like when these guys don't have pads on, they don't have shoulder pads on. They're a lot harder to grab and get a hold of. There's no cloth to grab. There's no jersey to grab. So, it's a lot harder to pass protect against these guys when they're in t-shirts and they can bull rush you. Again, it's just not realistic, honestly, compared to regular football. But it's good. I mean, times guys will look great in drills and then, the film isn't what you need it to be. But, we had Pat Elflein in 11, and he was a kid that really had a nice camp. We really liked him. I remember I was with Matt Campbell, who's the head coach at Iowa State now. Matt loved Elflein. He offered him, and then we took him in and we offered him. So it's like we kind of just like superseded his offer as soon as that happened. But, I liked the kid. I liked his mentality. I thought he had a lot of upside. Nobody was excited about that kid when he committed. Nobody. And he's like on year 7 in the league right now. But everybody was like, oh my God, Pat Elflein, 3-star special, Pickerington kid. I had, the Borns said that he wasn't any good and he couldn't play. And I was like, I don't know, man. I think he's pretty good. And he ended up actually being better than any of the Borns, which is not surprising. And he's still in the league and he's having a nice career. But he was a major award winner. He won the Remington for us, which is amazing. But sometimes it's just good to see the kid's competitive nature. It's good to see his agility, his fluidity. I mean, Pat was really good in the cone drills, some of that stuff that is kind of silly and stupid for big guys to do. It's just kind of nice to see guys that look athletic and they're tough. And, I thought Pat's mental makeup was something that would help him overcome some physical deficiencies because he's not the biggest kid in the world. He's not the strongest kid in the world, but he really is an athletic kid. He has a great puller on his film, which I loved. And he just had, like I said, he just had the right makeup. Like some guys, they might look great or they might be bigger, but they're just, they're soft, and Pat was a tough dude. His old man was a tough dude. His old man, like, I think he did concrete and mason work and so, he's like laying bricks all day. So, you're a tough dude when you're the Elflein family, and he raised Pat tough. Pat was a tough kid. He's a wrestler, which I loved, but he was the guy that, we offered right off of camp just because he had a really good camp. And, he was a guy that we thought could be an inside guy, ended up playing center, and guard. And he was really good. I mean, his redshirt freshman, he was in there against Michigan in that 13 game when Marcus Hall did the double bird, and he played fantastic. So, it's fun to find some guys like that, some guys you help fill the class out with. But, sometimes the guys that you're filling the class out with end up being better than, because that was the same year that we had Kalis. Kalis famously decommitted, went to Michigan. Obviously, Michigan had a lot of momentum at the time when Brady Hoke had won that Sugar Bowl. They beat Virginia Tech. They had all the juju going, and we looked like a dumpster fire. We fired Tress, so Kalis flips, goes to Michigan, and everybody wanted 5-star Kyle Kalis. Nobody wanted Pat Elflein, and Pat Elflein had a better college career. And I'm good friends with Kyle. I like Kyle a lot. Kyle made a major mistake not going to Ohio State. He knows he made a major mistake not going to Ohio State. And Pat's still playing in the league, and Kyle lasted maybe about a year and a half in the league. So, it just kind of is what it is. And that's why I get excited about every recruit. Don't just be a stargazer, because a lot of times you understand some of these guys who do these rankings are total idiots and they're clueless, and they've never played the game, they don't know the game, they've never coached the game at any level, but they just want to be like evaluators, but they really can't evaluate anything. So be careful sometimes when you side more with these evaluators than you do coaches. Like college coaches, I mean, they got to sign their name to these kids, and if they miss on too many of these kids, they got to uproot their family because they're going to get fired. They're going to be moved on, and that's this big boy college football. So, but yeah, we had an interesting visit. Sam Williams Dixon visited Kentucky, which is kind of surprising, but we've taken Jordan Lyle. We've taken a couple of running backs since he committed. Things that allegedly have been cleared up by Ohio State about a surprise visit to an SEC school. Nevada, is there something to some smoke around that, you think? I mean, everything's acting like everything's hunky-dory, but if a kid takes a surprise visit and doesn't inform the Ohio State coaching staff, I think that's a terrible, terrible look. It's a terrible move. I don't know what the kid's thinking, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, look, the kid's he's a virtuoso piano player, and he understands that the music program at Kentucky is top notch, and he wanted to go there and check it out. So I don't, he's following in the famed Antonio Hall's footsteps there, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And we're just gonna have to respect him for doing it. But no, all kidding aside, I, I think these things have a way of working themselves out. Ohio State's saying it's cool. Ohio State's saying that he's still part of the class. He's still in the class, but I think that was kind of one of those. He wanted to tell them that he's got options, and I think they told him back that they got options too. And I think there's kind of a mutual detente, but that's going to be a situation I'm going to be keeping a careful eye on throughout the year because generally when somebody threatens the relationship like that, I'm not sure what the outcome's going to be. But for right now, he's part of the class. I'm going to just assume he's going to be part of the class, and hopefully it all works out. I like the kid a lot and think he could be a really good college player. But we're going to keep a close eye on that one, and we'll be reporting back.
Yeah, it doesn't look good. You do that kind of thing. I remember with Urban, and again, it's a massive sliding scale. JJ Smith can go visit every school in America. JJ can go to Georgia 50 times, and Ohio State's really got their hands side because JJ's that good. Sam Williams Dixon is not that kind of guy. He doesn't have that kind of yank that JJ has or some of these other dudes do. So, some of these kids, I mean, I get one to be double, triple check, but man, when you're committed to Ohio State, visiting Kentucky is just like, I don't know. It's like if you're committed to go to Vegas and instead you go to Pismo Beach or something. It's just not really the same. It's kind of
Asheville, North Carolina.
It's like Asheville, North Carolina for the bachelor party. Shout out to my buddy actually is. So any of you guys that know Asheville, let me know because my buddy is planning his bachelor party for Asheville, North Carolina. I didn't even know where that was. I'm like, we can't do Vegas or Miami like regular people, but it's fine. Isaac Souls Jr. will be at Ohio State per a really good source. Isaac Souls, Browns legend. Isaac Souls is in here. Appreciate you, my man. Paul, what's up, brother? Appreciate you. Hope you're feeling good. Brass Tax, my dude, is in the house. Eastmore, Deontay Johnson, Justin Valentine's school. But yeah, I think conditioning is rolling now. We had a great nugget on some of the guys that have been standing out in conditioning. I think that this is a time, man, where guys they gotta lock in, man. They gotta eat right. They gotta go to bed early. I mean, these runs are draining. These lifts are draining. You gotta take care of yourself, and it's the survival of the fittest. And there's some attrition sometimes, man. Guys get hurt in these runs. Sometimes they pull hamstrings. They get hurt in the weight room. You just gotta keep rolling. I mean, you gotta keep it going. Some of these guys look great, man. Trey Henderson, Nevada's boy, completely jacked, completely ripped. Again, I think he looks like Saquon. People think I'm crazy, but I mean, 2 years ago, this kid was the bee's knees. Last year, plantar fasciitis, kind of a lost year. Nevada, what do you project from Trey this year? I mean, obviously he wants to go pro, wants to have that big year. He's got to have a big year where he stays healthy because he can't be, the porcelain doll. He can't be one of these running backs that turns into, out my ouchie or my boo boo. I can't play my junior year, so I can go pro. What do you project numbers wise for Trey? Is he going to bounce back and have that All-American year that we projected him to have last year?
Yeah, he's going to be. I mean, he's going to be a monster. I mean, Trey is such a great kid and such a competitor, and it's such an enigma because Trey. If you think the fan base when they think of Trey, you'll hear him talk about stuff that he's soft or did, and it's like no one on the roster, not even including Mayan, finishes runs as violently as Trey Henderson. Trey to a fault. Trey tries to run through guys every single time that he's got the ball. And he's a tightly wound athlete. He had a terrible case of plantar last year. The ruptured ligament, the whole 9 yards, and it just really made him force some things and really made him one dimensional. But I mean, he's going to be great this year. Now, obviously, the one wild card always with every player on the roster, and it goes without saying, is injury and further injury. But assuming he stays healthy. He is Saquon Barkley. I mean, look, Saquon Barkley went to the league and was great, and then he got injured and he wasn't so great, and then he's back and now he's great again. So, look, it happens to the best of. It happens to all the running backs. but Trey's a terrific home run hitter and a guy that's got a skill set that's different than anybody else on the team. I wish they'd swing him out the ball more. They're threatening to do that this year. They've practiced it more. If they do that, watch out because he's dangerous. He's a threat to take it to the house every time he gets it. But I think he's going to have a big year at Ohio State. But it's going to be hard for anybody to put up just really gaudy numbers because they share the ball so much. And Alford loves those rotations. And you've got Mayan, who's another guy who I think will play in the NFL for 10 years. So, let alone Dallin Hayden, let alone Chip. You start moving your way down the list, and it's just tough to get everybody to the football. But I think he's going to have a great year, and he's certainly in a great frame of mind, and certainly in tremendous shape.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing that'll dampen his numbers is, dude, you've got Mayan, you've got Dallin, you've got Chip. You've got some legit running backs that would start at pretty much 95% of the schools. Like Mayan would start pretty much anywhere. Obviously, Trey would start at any school in the country, and then you've got Dallin, who was fantastic last year. Chip started the Michigan game. And again, like if there's one major criticism of Tony Alford, his rotations have been insane sometimes in terms of who he's played, who he started, who he's given touches to. Again, Master Teague over Trey Sermon was a head scratcher. Master Teague over Trey Henderson the next year was a head scratcher. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he manages a superstar running back, a good running back in Mayan Williams, and then some guys that are maybe a step below Mayan in Dallin and Chip. Again, I don't know why Dallin didn't play more in the Michigan game when he carried the mail and he really saved our bacon against Maryland. So I don't understand the rotation sometimes. I think it's foolish, but it is what it is. Another group that's got some decent guys, we got our boy Cade Stover. Cade is obviously, he was a huge ad. He's got kind of gone pro. Probably been a fifth or sixth round pick if he'd have gone pro this year. Another year in that room. You got Jelani Thurman. You got G. Scott. You got Bennett Christian. You got some guys that are, they better get rolling a little bit. Patrick Gird's a walk-on. He's a lot like Mitch Rossi. But what do you expect from Cade this year? I think Cade could be the guy, man. I think he's, he really developed, came on last year, caught a ton of balls. He was dinged up, banged up last year by the end, and he had the dropsies. I think part of it was due to injury, but part of it, he's got to catch those. Even if your arm's ripped off, you still got to be able to bring those things in. But what do you project from Cade this year, Nevada?
Well, you forgot the guy that took the most snaps in the Georgia game is Joe Royer. It was like he's pretty good tight end as well. So, no, I think we've got some really good tight end. Cade's just so important to the team. I think Cade's importance to the team it goes way beyond his physicality, way beyond his receptions, way beyond his point of attack blocking. It's just he's a war daddy, and I don't say that about a lot of guys. I think a lot of guys are kind of fake guys. It's kind of like being in hockey, the phony tough guys, the guys that go out there and they start the fight, but then they don't really throw any punches. They just kind of grab, or the guys that kind of hit the glass really hard or do whatever it is. There's nothing fake about Cade. Cade is absolutely legit, country strong, and really tough and really mean. And I think people forget. I think they remember the last half of the season where, like you said, where he had that bad elbow and bad shoulder, was dinged up and dropped some passes, and forget the first half of the season where he was playing like an All-American tight end. And I think we're going to see more and more of that. I know that's kind of a siren song every year. We talk about how Ohio State's going to rediscover the tight end, but they threw to the tight end quite a bit, especially around the goal line first half of the season last year, and I expect to see more of that. And I think Cade's going to be the beneficiary.
Yeah, and people they remember he couldn't finish the Georgia game. He had that bad lower back deal, and had to leave that game. So I think that there's enough juice and momentum and motivation for Cade to finish the season stronger. Because like at the six week mark, people thought he was going to be treating the growth first team All-American tight end, which we haven't had one of those in a long time. I had imagined since Ricky Dudley. We don't have many guys that are first team All-Americans at that position because we don't use that position. Plus, now that we've got 2-3 superstar wide receivers, it's really tough to keep those guys, to feed those guys. Well, the official visits wrapped up this weekend. We had a lot of guys in town. An intriguing guy was Daniel Cruz, a guy who, Texas kid, obviously at Richland. He's a kid that we're going to break his film down. Big guy, again, not a lot of steam towards Ohio State, but we got him on campus, which is always a good start. And, I just think that, if I'm a kid that really wants to play, man, that depth chart is pretty appetizing. There's a lot of guys that, you could compete against and potentially beat out. This is a kid that would be a great get for us. And there's another interior guy, which kind of worries me because there's not a lot of tackles in the class, but we need to get that big, tall tackle as he gets on a campus. So we got some coming in the next few weeks as they start hosting some more kids. Gonna get into his film real quick. But yeah, Nevada, how would you grade our O-line recruiting so far?
Well, look, I've always said I would go to war with Ohio kids. I've said that our last national championship teams have all been dominated almost exclusively by Ohio offensive linemen. I always think the highest of Ohio offensive linemen. So it would be hypocritical of me to criticize our offensive line recruiting when we're doing a really good job of getting the best kids in Ohio. Now, are we getting the best kids nationally? Don't know. Do I care? Not sure I care. Because again, refer to point one, I love Ohio linemen. So you're asking me, and I'm probably going to be a higher grade on the offensive line than anybody because, I'm not a big stargazer when it comes to the offensive line. And if there's any state in the United States that I want to get offensive linemen from, it's Ohio. And we're getting all the best ones from Ohio, at least the best, in our opinion, what the best ones are. And so, to me, that's B plus, A minus at a minimum type of recruiting.
Yeah, and I think we got some guys that have some major upside. I mean, the Armstrongs, obviously, the one guy was out at Muirfield, and Deontay looked really lean. I mean, he looked like 270, but just ripped. And those are lean kids. They're good-looking kids. We got some, Mark Dave's still working his way into shape. But, like I said, I think it's early. I think that with, us already having four, we get a fifth one to get a big tackle, or we get a portal guy. It ends up being a really good class. And the thing is we've got a lot of guys that are back in 24. Simmons is back. We're likely going to have our center back. I mean, we're going to lose Matt Jones. Likely we'll lose Donnie. If he has a big year, he'll probably go pro. But otherwise, man, you've got a nice nucleus of guys, George Fitzpatrick, Luke Montgomery. Like I said, I think Luke Montgomery and George Fitzpatrick are the two most athletic tackles we have. They're the two best pass blockers. I would really consider putting those two guys in left and right tackle and just let them roll. Maybe not with the ones, not initially, but like I start training camp. That's my second team set of tackles. Is I'd put George at left, I'd put Luke at right, and just let them go and just see how they do. And just and again, because like I think pass protection is kind of everything with what we do with what Ryan does, and I hate that because I think that when it gets cold, a little chilly out, you better be able to run the ball. And you better be able to stop the run. But, we are the fun and gun now. And that, and that's great. And we put up really dazzling, pretty numbers. But man, it's hard when you become a straight finesse team because when you play a physical team, it's really hard to stop them. But yeah, his film, like I said, his film's good. Again, I've seen him pull more now in this highlight film than I think we pulled in the entire season last year. We ran a couple counter plays last year towards the end of the season, but we did not run power like we used to. We're more of a stretch team now. But his film's good. He's physical. He's 6'4", which means he's probably 6'3", listed. So it'll be interesting to see if this goes anywhere. Like I said, he's finishing guys. He's dumping guys. He plays pretty nasty, which is great. Sometimes you get some of these kids and they're scared to finish guys, put guys into the dirt, and this kid definitely isn't that as you watch his tape. We got some questions. I saw some really good ones, and my man Brass Tax had a good one. Where'd you go, my man? He asked about vision. Nevada, I'm gonna ask you first. How important is vision for a running back? And is vision as important or more important than straight ahead speed? I'll let you take that.
Well, I mean, I think the answer is yes, and no. I mean, vision is certainly that it's a necessary but not sufficient attribute to have in order to be a great running back. you got to have vision, and I think every running back's got vision to some degree. It's just a matter of some guys can, when you really talk about vision, what you're really talking about is anticipating where the hole's going to be. And it's, because people think about vision and they think it's like actually seeing the thing. And it's really not seeing it so much as it's anticipating where it's going to be and having just that innate feel for what's going to open up and why it's going to open up. And what they found is, with running backs, it's not so much recognition of the players or things it's recognition of patterns. And so guys that are just basically good pattern seekers, guys that can do the Rubik's Cube, guys that can, see patterns kind of opening up for them, they'll know just intuitively where the holes are going to be. And like I said, you got to have every attribute to be the great running back. But for me, vision, ranks right up there with athleticism and speed. I mean, obviously the exception would be, Brandon Sane was a great straight line. He's the answer to every question when we talked about great straight line speed and not much vision or not much wiggle or not much, lateral movement. But I think speed in general is certainly, in my book, every bit as important as vision. Maybe not more so, but I think you got to have both in equal measures.
Yeah, I agree. Master Teague, if you look at Master's one of the nicest kids, one of the greatest kids, great family, but you look at his combine numbers and he's one of the most athletic players in the country. He'd be one of the most athletic players in the NFL, and he's not on a roster right now. The Steelers just let him go. It's because it's a vision thing. I mean, I'm telling you, that kid ran low 4.4, shuttle runs were incredible. Vertical is incredible. Like, if you look at his combine numbers, he's like one of the top. He didn't get invited to the combine, but his pro day was unbelievable, and he's out of the league. Because it's a vision thing. And people, that's always kind of the knock that you run into darkness, but that's kind of what we're talking about. Like, there's a guy that if you looked at his numbers, you'd say, oh, that's a first round pick, second round pick at worst. And then when you look at the film and it just doesn't match up to the gaudy numbers that he had. And I agree on Brandon Sane. Brandon was a kid that I played with, really nice kid. Everyone had high hopes for him. Beanie was a little bit like that. Beanie had good vision, obviously, but he was a straight line missile. I mean, he's a guy that could run low 4.4s, just shot out of a cannon. But, he wasn't the most wiggly guy. He didn't have the most, his vision was good. I don't think it was great. I think Pitt had better vision. I think the guy from my time that had the best vision was Maurice Claret. But his vision was unbelievable. He would see things, bend back into holes, like flow back into the double team. I'd watch it. And honestly, like Trey, when Trey first got going, his freshman year, I mean, his vision was incredible, and I think that like his injury really hindered his ability to trust his body and his foot and his ability to cut and stop on a dime that he had his freshman year. Because I watched that guy and I'd watch him bend it back and I'd be like, dude, that is unbelievably good. Like, that's like, you're like an offensive lineman's dream, because there's some running backs that just literally close their eyes and run right into your back. And Carlos Hyde was like that. I'll never forget, we played in Nebraska in 2011, and Jack Mewhort got his ribs broken because Carlos like closed his eyes and put his head down and ran, 26 miles an hour right into Jack's side and fractured his rib, with the crown of his helmet. So like, that was the ultimate no vision play. We've got a super chat. My man D Sonny, appreciate you, brother. Can an offensive lineman get hot or in a zone during a game and the coaches decide to focus running behind them? That is a fantastic question, and absolutely you can. And I think that it's a combination of playing well, being in the zone, and the matchup, because, sometimes, that hotness comes because you've got the matchup. You've got the easier defensive end or the easier defensive tackle or the lighter defensive tackle, or, there's some weeks where we'd formation guys to, if we had like a really good three technique, like Alan Branch from Michigan, who was like 6'6", 350, huge, we would run at the other guy, Terrence Taylor. So we'd formation him and get away from Branch so that we could run to the other side. Like, there's some things that you do like that where, you try to play the matchups. If you can predict where a guy's going to be based on, he's a three technique, he's always to the tight end, we're going to run some short side runs away from the tight end, or he's always to the field, which is the the wide side of the field, or to the boundary, which is the short side of the field. You try to figure that out and maximize the things. But yeah, absolutely, guys can get hot. I mean, I would always be really big with the guys when I was coaching in 2010, 11, and 12. I'd be like, guys, like, be honest with me. Are you handling your guy? Don't let me turn that film on the next day and say you're getting whipped. Because we need honest opinions. Like, can you handle your guy? Do you need help? Because if a guy needs help, I'd rather that he tells me he needs help and we can get him fixed. We can switch protections. We can switch the running game up a little bit. But if a guy's whipping a guy, then I want to know that too, because then we can really focus and laser in on that, because that's valuable knowledge. And again, I always say the players know who the players are, and the guys on the field know the matchups better than anybody, especially when you physically get your hands on a guy. And there'd be times I get into a game and I get my hands I'm like, oh God, I'm gonna whip this guy today because he's not very strong, he's weak, he's light, he's not good with his hands. Like, there's a million little indicators that once you get into the game, you're like, yeah, this guy's gonna get cooked. And that was like the thing. It's kind of like you watch some of these NBA guys, like they'll get into a game and they'll feel that they got the matchup and then they just go crazy. But Nevada, do you want to chime in on this one on an offensive lineman getting hot?
I think you probably have a little bit more knowledge on that one, but I am fascinated by the technology that's coming out right now. There's technology out that you can like put a laser on a guy, and you can tell how much he's perspiring, where what his physical output is, what his power output, and so the future is going to be going across that line, lasering up and kind of figuring out who's tiring, who's starting to falter. So you're talking about who we running behind. Well, it's going to be technology driven as much it is who's hot and who's handling their guy and stuff like that. And I find that part of it fascinating because between AI and remote monitoring and things like that, I think football is going to be a very different looking game over the next 10, 15, 20 years.
I totally agree. I think that there's going to be a way, like you'll have Google Analytics, and it's kind of like how they show, guys, they've got these tracking devices now that show where guys have ran and how much they've run and the routes they've run. And, you see these little like crazy, like it looks like lightning bolts where all the routes that they've run and all that crazy, Google Analytics that you get out. But I think that they're going to start doing that on the line and say, hey, this guy, the force of the double team is this, and the D lineman's force is this. And, when this force amount is this much, this is how much push you're getting. And this D lineman, his pulse is this, so he's gassed, or his, there's got to be things that they're going to be able to tell, by, like you said, by like lasers and by these catapult devices that these guys all wear now to track their movement and track their speed and their deceleration and all that. I mean, that's coming. I mean, pretty soon you're going to be able to do that just with sensors all around the field. I mean, it's going to be crazy. David, this is a great question. Thoughts on carry distribution amongst the running backs? So we'll just do percentages. We'll try to keep it round. So if out of 100% of the carries, Nevada, with our running back room, give me what you project the distribution to be by Tony Alford. Obviously projecting that the guys all stay healthy throughout the season.
Well, what I think it'll be, or what I think it should be?
No, what you think it will be. And then after that, you can say what it should be.
Okay. Well, I'd say what I think it will be is it'll probably be 35% Trey, 35% Mayan, 20% Dallin, and then whatever's left over there split up between Chip and Xavier and Evan Pryor if he's ever healthy, and whomever else that they get. That would be my projection. What I think it should be, I think Trey should get 50% of the carries. I think Mayan should get 30% of the carries. I think Dallin should get 15% of the carries, and 5% of the carries get split up between the rest of them. But that's how I would do it.
Yeah, I think that's I think that you're pretty spot on with Alfred. It's gonna be interesting. Like, Evan Pryor is a name that no one's heard about. Be interesting to see where he's at, because that's the guy that people were really excited about after that spring game. He's a guy that you put a gun in my head, a guy that could be a portal guy. I know it's late for the portal, but that's the guy that could start at a lot of places. After that spring game, man, there was a lot of talk about him dipping out last year's spring game when he really was crushing it. Obviously, he's towards ACL early in camp. But yeah, I think, realistically, it's going to be 30% Trey, 30% Mayan. And I think that the other swath is going to go Dallin, Chip. I think Evan Pryor is going to get a couple touches a game. Now, I might be crazy, but, that kid's, he's good. I mean, he's Trey's age, and, he hasn't really had the production or the opportunity, but just to keep that kid happy. And, it's tough when you've got 5 running backs that are good. Even if one's coming off an ACL, I think you got to get Dallin in there. I think Dallin's parents were worried about what's his role going to be. And, I mean, when if you have 70 offensive plays and you got to feed Marvin 10 touches, Emeka 10 touches, you got 50 touches left, you're going to have to, 20, 25 handoffs, and mix in a couple of quarterback runs, keepers, scrambles, whatever. And then you got there 15, 20 left for the third wide receiver, the tight end. It goes quick, I mean, those 70 plays, like, it seems like a lot, but once you give Marvin 10 to 15 touches and Emeka 10, 15 touches, like it's gobbled up pretty fast. So, well, this has been a good one. Appreciate you guys as always. Gonna wrap this thing up. Nevada, you got any final words as we get into camp season, conditioning? A lot of great stuff on Buckeye Scoop. Our message board is on fire right now, but any closing thoughts, Nevada?
Man, just take me to your leader. The alien stuff. I know that's not OSU, but I'm telling you that I'm riveted. I'm riveted on that. And there's supposed to be a big press conference, I think tomorrow or the next day, like a big press conference on alien stuff. And I know I'm going to be tuned in, and I know we'll be discussing it in depth on BuckeyeScoop.com. So stay tuned.
I mean, I know one thing. If you would have said, Kirk, tomorrow one of the following is going to happen: aliens are going to be revealed, or the PGA is going to merge with the Saudis and live. Which one is more likely? I said them aliens are coming for sure. I'd have never guessed that the PGA is going to merge with the Saudis after all of the chest thumping and all of the morality. But hey, man, money always wins. Cash is king. You agree with that?
The faux outrage and the moral preening about the nasty old Saudis, and they took the bag and just did it. Yeah, just like old Jay Monahan. You're the man. You're the biggest hypocrite in sports, there, my man.
Oh, what an absolute scumbag. All right, well, we're going to wrap this thing. We appreciate you guys as always. Thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you, Paul. The regulars, thank you. Brass Sacks, the squad is on here. Thank you guys. Appreciate you guys. We need you guys to keep cranking these numbers. We appreciate everything you guys do. If you enjoy this content, please leave us a like. Click that subscribe button. Get that little alert bell going if you like watching these things live. Again, we appreciate you guys. You guys really help us. It's always fun doing this with you guys. And again, if you guys love this show, BuckeyeScoop.com is the place for you. It is a great Father's Day gift. I'm telling you, if you're a father and your wife is, or your whatever, want you to have something great, BuckeyeScoop.com annual membership is for you. You want to get your dad something great, BuckeyeScoop.com. The best content, best camaraderie, the best board. It is just a blast on there every day. I spend a ton of time on there. So we appreciate you guys as always. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation, and thank you, Scoop family. I am going to get on the message boards of BuckeyeScoop.com because they are on fire right now. I can't wait to dive on. So thank you guys. You guys have a great rest of your day. Go Bucks.